All right, y'all. Today, our next lesson for our financial literacy unit is going to be over sales tax. So this may be the day that you are covering the lesson. It may not be just the day that we're doing it for this year, okay? So it just depends on when you're watching this video. So don't worry about that part. So what our focus is we're going to be able to calculate the amount of sales tax and then find the total. So sales tax is the amount added to the price. It's an additional cost. So that money is actually going to the state. And taxes help pay for a variety of things like police officers, teachers, firefighters, libraries. They pay for a lot of different things that the community and the state as a whole benefit from. So sales tax rate is the percent of the tax. Subtotal is the price before the sales tax is added. The total is the new price after the sales tax is added. So in our previous lessons, we've covered discounts, or maybe you'll cover discounts in the next lesson. Just depends on the order in which your teacher is teaching it to you. But sales tax is an extra cost, where discounts is a discount where you're taking away. So subtotal, either way, is what's happening before you make that change. So subtotal is before the discount or before the tax is added. The total is after those things are applied. So something to be mindful of. So again, we talk about percents, and that is going to be out of 100. So we could find the percent of our sales tax by making a one chart, words, original, new ratio. And then we can do part, whole, numbers, percent. Or the second way that we could do that is we could take the subtotal, multiply by the decimal as a percent, and that's going to be the actual tax rate itself. And that part that represents what we're finding is the tax. So if we're looking at the part, whole, number, percent, that part is actually going to be the tax, while the whole, and this is where some students get confused, it's actually the subtotal first. So what was it before a discount or before the tax was added to it or taken away if it was a discount? So these are two ways that I'm going to show you how to do this. And we'll do a couple of each way to kind of show you how to look at it, just to make sure that you understand how to solve it. Okay? So let's talk about that again. Kind of gave you a little bit of an example, but I want to make sure that y'all are clear with that. So sales tax is set by the state. So it varies from state to state. That money is going to go directly to the state and not the business. So the subtotal of what you're paying goes to the business. The tax is going to the state. Well, the amount of sales tax is called the sales tax rate, and that's going to be written as a percent. And so it says it is set as a percent of the total. So, of course, the more you buy, the more you're going to pay. We do not, in Texas, we do not pay sales tax on food, but that means groceries or medication. So let me talk a little bit about that. So in the state of Texas, the lawmakers kind of think, well, you shouldn't have to be taxed on food when you need to eat. You shouldn't have to be taxed on medication when you need to take those certain medications. So whenever you go to the grocery store the next time, when you ring up those groceries, double check the bottom of the receipt where the tax is. And the only thing that's going to be taxed, if you bought all food, there's not going to be any tax on there. But if you bought food and maybe a movie or a book, well, then the tax is going to be off from that movie and the book. Now, the reason why I make sure to say groceries on this, if you go out to eat, well, you're having a business prepare that food for you, so you're going to be taxed on that because it's a service. So if you're going to H-E-B or the grocery store or wherever you buy your groceries, that's what's not being taxed. So that's kind of something to think about. So in the state of Texas, this is the Texas tax rate. Currently is 8 2/2500%. Okay? So we're going to look at this receipt and break down different parts of it. But what we're going to look at is we're going to take the subtotal and we're going to figure out the sales tax and add them together. And that will be your final total. So read very carefully, because some questions just want the sales tax and some questions want to know how much you're going to pay. So if they say how much do you pay in tax, then you want to just find the sales tax. If they say how much did you pay was your final amount, that means you have to find the sales tax and add it to your subtotal. So we'll see a couple of examples right there in just a minute. So let's break down what's over here. This is just an example receipt from Chick-fil-A, and at the very top of the receipt, you're going to see a couple important information. You're going to see the location, we're going to see the phone number, etc., basically just business information. And the reason why we have that is if there's something wrong with your receipt, you need to have that location, if they give you the operator, the manager's name, that phone number, just to make sure, because sometimes when you call in, they're going to ask for that information. What location did you go to? Because there's a lot of Chick-fil-A's. Well, next we have where it says customer copy. You can see we have the date, the time, and other information such as the order number, because they see a lot of different things going on. So if you just say, I went on April 23rd and this is what happened, they need to make sure specifically they can go to that order number and see who you dealt with, anything like that. So right here we can say date, time, order number, etc. Basically, the information on the purchase. Okay. Then down here, it's kind of pointed to this, the subtotal is going to be before the tax or discount if you had one. And then the tax is based on tax rate. Okay, so they didn't tell me the tax rate, but depending on where it is, so this is the state of Texas, so that 62 cents should be 8.25% of that subtotal. And then to get to your final total, they just added those two together. So this will make a little more sense once we do a couple of examples together. So I'm going to do two problems with you, and I'm going to show you on both problems either way to do that. Meaning, with this little sentence stem or the proportion table. And the reason why I do that is so that you work with the idea that works best for you. Some of you will see a little bit better this way. Some of you are used to proportion tables, and that might be a little bit helpful. Remember, we can do this if we're finding the part of that original amount. Okay? So let's look at this. It says, if the sales tax rate is 7.25% or 7.25% in California, how much would you pay in Los Angeles for a pair of shoes that cost $39? The first way I'm going to show you is with this little fill-in-the-blank sentence stem. Okay? Then I'm going to show you with the proportion table on a scratch piece of paper just to make sure that it matches up. So we're going to say subtotal, because that would have been my original amount, times my decimal, my percent written as a decimal, which is going to be the tax rate, and that's going to equal the part. Okay? So let's fill in the blanks, and we'll work this out. So before any discount or before sales tax, go back and reread, it's $39. Then 7.25%, but we're not going to write 7.25 right there. I know we've reviewed how to go from decimal to percent. We move twice to the left. So 0.0725. Okay? So if we needed to multiply by decimals, 0.0725 times 39. If you are not able to use a calculator on the assignment, just remember that you need to know how to do that without it. But I'm going to use the calculator just for time purposes. So we'll make sure that we know, remember when we multiply with decimals, you put the one with more digits on the top and you're lining up the digits. Okay? So let's see what we get. So subtotal, $39 times 0.0725, which is the equivalent of 7.25%. So we get 2.8275. But let's stop and think about this. We're talking about money. So if we're talking about money, we round to the nearest hundredth, because that's our change. Let me zoom in a little bit so y'all can see this. So we need to decide if it's going to be $2.82 or if it's going to be $2.83. So if you're rounding to the nearest hundredth, you look at the number in the thousandths. That's the only one we need to look at. So 4 or less, let it rest. 5 or more, add 1 more. So this is going to be $2.83 worth of tax. Forgot to say this part represented in this was tax. Okay, but let's go back and double check. Was that what they wanted for the question? How much would you pay in Los Angeles for a pair? Were we only paying $2.83? No, that's just the part. So then we're going to take the $39. I'll show you that visual right here. You take the subtotal, which we got $39, plus the sales tax, which we just figured out was $2.83. Line up our decimals, line up our place value, and then we're going to see that our final answer, so line up my decimals, that's 3, 8, 9, 10, 11, is $41.83. So that's going to be my final answer. Again, be very careful on these, because if this question asked you just for the tax, that would be your answer. If they ask you for your total, that would be the answer. Another way they might trick you is if you accidentally subtracted these numbers. But think about what this represents. Tax is an additional cost. If it was a discount, that's when we would have subtracted. So be very careful. So $41.83 would have been my total. But let me show you guys that different way, just in case you like that proportion table. Okay? So when we talked about proportions table, we're just saying the part, the whole, the numbers, and the percent. And the part that we're looking for, going back on our previous page right here, this represents the tax, and this is the subtotal. So the subtotal was your whole amount before we had any tax, was $39 for those tennis shoes, I believe. And if it was 100%, 100% is $39. And yes, I know that sounds funny because you're like, but there's an additional cost. But sometimes they have tax-free weekends, so you don't have to pay anything. So the original 100% price right now is $39 before we added any discounts or tax. So that's why $39 is there. The percent, they said, was 7.25. And then we're figuring out the tax because that's what they didn't tell me. Okay. So here again, we can cross multiply and then divide. So 39 times 7 and 25/100 divided by 100 is going to get me what x is equal to. And again, for time purposes, we're going to go ahead and just use our calculator, but you have to make sure you know how to do this without one. 39 times 7.25 is 282 75/100. Divided by 100 is 2.8275. And hopefully you think that that number looks familiar, because it is. Again, we're going to round to the nearest hundredth, so 4 or less, let it rest, 5 or more, add 1 more. So either way, you're getting x, which is your tax represents, in this word problem, is $2.83. And we've already added that over here. So I really want to make sure that y'all know both strategies so that you know which one works best for you. Okay? If you're familiar with that percent table and want to keep working with that, keep going. If you're kind of starting to see how we can find these parts from multiplying with our total times the decimal percent, you can use that. Okay? So let's do one more problem together. And I'm just going to do it this way just to kind of help with time purposes. But if you want to set it up that way too, you can check in on it. So let's do this last one over here. It says the price of a new car is $29,999. If the sales tax rate is 6.5% or 6 5/10%, how much sales tax is being charged? What is the total cost? So this wants both. They want the sales tax and the total. Okay? So here again, we can use our little sentence stem. We're taking the whole, which would be the subtotal before any discounts or sales tax, times the decimal, which was the percent of the tax rate. So written that as a decimal. And that's going to give you the part that represents the tax. So that's how much you're spending. All right, so our total is 29,990. I'm not going to put 6.5 there. That would be a trick. Got to move our decimal twice to the left. So 0.065. So 65 thousandths. Okay? That's what we're going to put right there. Because that decimal is equivalent to 6.5%. Remember, when we're changing percent to decimal, you drop the percent sign, and then you move the decimal twice to the left. Again, for time purposes, we're going to check it with our calculator, but please make sure you know how to do this without a calculator, just when you're not able to use one. So $29,990 times 0.065. If you only put 6.5 there, you're going to fall for a trick. So that's a little bit of a glare. We have $1,949.35. And that makes sense that it's that much because, so 9,949, yeah, because this was a really large number. So over here, you only had $39, so that's not as much, but this is a lot. This one was $30,000. So that's why the more you pay, the more your tax is going to be. Okay? So the sales tax, this one has two questions. The sales tax is equal to $1,949.35, but we're not finished. The next problem says, what is the total cost? So your total cost would be taking your subtotal, the amount before taxes or before discount, and then we're going to add the sales tax. So that's why we have these little pictures to help you out. So I'm going to do my work over here. $29,990 plus $1,949.35. So 0.00, because there's nothing in the tenths or hundredths place. Bring down the decimal. So very important for us to remember how to multiply with decimals as well as how to add with them in this situation. So that would be 5, 3, 9, 9 plus 4 is 13, 18 plus 1 is 19, 9, 10, 11. So we line up our place value. And so for this problem, we'll just kind of write the total up here. Box that answer. So it's nice and easy for our teachers to see it. So $31,939.35 would be your total. So after your tax at a tax rate of 6.5%, that's how much you're going to pay. All right, so I did not do the proportion table on this one, but if you would like to do the proportion table and double check that you get the same answer a different way or need any assistance with that, just please reach out to your teacher, let us know. Try this one out on your own and see what you get, and then good luck on your assignment.